when I was deplatformed and when my election was rigged because the big tech social media companies wouldn't allow me to have access to social media, RT started reaching out to me and asking me to come on their show. And they said, why don't you have a byline on RT? And you can even write for RT. I never took any money from RT. I was never paid. But I felt, wow, how crazy is it that my own government won't allow me to, they're not fighting for me when the big tech social media companies are deplatforming my campaign and they're not allowing me to have a voice, but RT will let me talk about these issues, right? And then you start to get kind of goaded into saying things like, oh, well, maybe they care more about free speech than my own country. Or, wow, Putin made a comment about how they stole the election with mail-in ballot fraud. And so you make comments that are pro-Putin. And I made a lot of those comments. I said, wow, he's 100% right about needing to denazify Ukraine. And I recognized that I said, wow, he's openly criticizing the big tech social media companies for rigging the election against Donald Trump. And while I'm glad that he said those things, part of me wonders, like, did he actually mean it? Or is this part of the psychological operation to try to co-opt the right after 10 years of being told that there was Russia collusion and, like a Russian interference scandal in our elections. And then we all got Russia fatigue and we started to get really sick and tired of people who would constantly attack Russia for everything. And a lot of us just became overly sympathetic to Russia and we put the blinders on because we just thought that, oh my God, anytime anybody mentions Russia, well, this means that, they're trying to spew propaganda against Donald Trump and the conservative movement, and they're calling us Russian bots. They called us all Russian bots, remember? And I remember even confronting Jack Dorsey during the Twitter hearing, and I said, we are not Russian bots. We are conservative Americans. And you started to sympathize with the Russians because they would call people like me a Russian bot. They would say that we were not real people. We were part of a Russian bot campaign to support Donald Trump's 2016 campaign against Hillary Clinton. But now when I see them say things like we need to denazify Ukraine and we need to continue our brutal war with Ukraine while they pretend to be, some Orthodox Christian country, but they're slaughtering thousands, like hundreds of thousands of young Christians in Ukraine. And then they're supporting actual neo-Nazis in the United States of America by clipping their podcasts. I'm like, wow, we fell for Russian propaganda and I fell for Russian propaganda. And so when Loomer Unleashed had this opportunity to send a correspondent abroad to Ukraine to be embedded on the front lines of the war and meet with Ukrainian officials, and there were multiple US senators there at the Odessa Security Conference, and Andrew asked me whether I would approve a correspondent to go to Ukraine. I thought about it for a while and I was really hesitant to do so because I thought, what are people going to think of me? I've been so anti-Ukraine for so long, and I have parroted these talking points thinking that I was, saying the right thing and not recognizing how, as a conservative or as a Trump supporter or just as an American citizen, how I was being emotionally manipulated by propaganda online. And so I felt a little embarrassed, to be completely honest, sending a correspondent abroad because I thought, well, people are going to attack me and they're going to say that I'm a hypocrite and they're not going to be gracious and they're not going to give me an opportunity to change my opinion.